How far would you go for food? In a village swallowed by hunger, Éloi made a choice that unleashed a nightmare. As Gaston faced the beast his friend had become, blood marked the final price. When survival demands everything, what's left of your soul? Dole, a crumbling village in 16th century France, was nothing but a wound festering under endless gray skies. Hunger gnawed at every doorstep. Disease crept through cracked wooden walls. Even the bravest men began to whisper of curses rather than pray for blessings. It was a place where hope wasn't just rare, it was dangerous. Among the worn faces were three young men: Lucien, the dreamer who still believed in salvation; Mathis, the pragmatist who trusted only what he could see; and Gaston, a quiet, brooding soul whose eyes had grown darker with each passing season. Friends since boyhood, they leaned on each other as the world around them crumbled. And then there was Éloi. Éloi had once been like them, laughing easily, working the fields with calloused hands, but the famine changed him. His family was starving, his sister lay dying, and the church offered prayers but no bread. It was in this hollow desperation that Éloi found something he was never meant to find: a crumbling, moth-eaten book tucked away in the ruins of an abandoned chapel. The book whispered of ancient solutions, ways to call upon forgotten forces, to barter suffering for gold, hunger for strength. It spoke of a price, vague and heavy. Yet in a world where death already loomed over every doorstep, any price seemed better than watching his loved ones rot away. Éloi would soon have to make a choice. A choice that would change not just his fate, but the fate of everyone he ever loved. Because in Dole, every salvation comes with a curse, and the payment always demands more than you're willing to give. The days grew heavier in Dole, like the clouds themselves were pressing down on the village, waiting to crush what little spirit remained. Hunger gnawed deeper. The faces of neighbors turned hollow, suspicious. Even Lucien, with his boundless optimism, began to walk with his head low, avoiding the desperate glances of those too weak to beg for help. Éloi clutched the ancient book he had found like it was a secret flame in a frozen world. Night after night, by the dying light of a stolen candle, he pored over its brittle pages. The text spoke of rituals older than the church itself, of powers not bound by mortal law. It spoke of the benefactor, a being beyond comprehension who offered wealth, strength, and abundance in exchange for one simple thing: loyalty. And so the temptation grew. One night, when even the moon dared not pierce the heavy mist, Éloi slipped away from the village. His friends, Lucien, Mathis, and Gaston, unaware of his intentions, slept soundly, believing tomorrow would be another day of suffering. They could not have known that Éloi's heart, twisted by despair, had already crossed a line invisible to ordinary men. In a clearing choked with fog, Éloi performed the rites he had memorized. He called into the dark, and the dark answered. A figure emerged, cloaked in shadows too thick to be natural. It spoke not with words, but with promises that bloomed inside Élioi's mind like black flowers, gold beyond counting. Fields heavy with grain. Strength enough to command kings. But such gifts are never given freely. There would be a cost, a tether forged between Élioi's soul and the benefactor's hunger. A hunger that would soon demand sacrifices, not from strangers, but from those closest to him. Éloi accepted. And at that moment, the curse took root. Little did he know, the true price of survival would only reveal itself when it was already too late. In the beginning, the changes were almost invisible. The very next morning after the ritual, Éloi returned to Dole carrying something rare: hope. His steps were lighter. His eyes, once hollowed by despair, now held a spark. And strangely, the fields around his small home seemed less withered than those of his neighbors. A rabbit caught in his snares. A sack of grain found abandoned at the edge of the woods. Tiny miracles, too small for anyone to question, yet too perfect to be natural. Lucien was the first to notice. "You're lucky," he said with a half-smile, clapping Éloi on the back. Mathis only nodded, his gaze lingering a second too long. Gaston said nothing, but his brow furrowed deep. Éloi wanted to believe he had tricked fate, that the benefactor's promises came without the horror hinted at in the book. He convinced himself these gifts were simply compensation for the suffering he had endured. But late at night, when the village slept, Éloi heard the whispers. soft at first, curling through the cracks in his door like mist. "Feed us, feed us." At first, he thought he was losing his mind. He even tried to drown out the voices with work, prayer, anything to feel clean again. But the benefactor does not give without demanding payment, and the debt was coming due. The true hunger had awakened. Éloi would soon face a choice far darker than hunger or survival. Because this time, the ones he would have to sacrifice had names he whispered in his prayers every night. And in Dole, loyalty was a weapon sharper than any blade. The night it happened, the air was too still. Even the insects, normally a constant hum in the village, had fallen silent, as if the earth itself held its breath. Éloi had tried to resist. He had locked himself inside his modest shack, clutching his rosary, muttering broken prayers with shaking hands. But hunger, true hunger, the kind that grips your bones and strangles your mind, laughed at his efforts. The whispers became roars. His vision blurred. His heart pounded not with fear, but with a savage craving. Somewhere in the dark, he heard footsteps. Familiar, trusting. It was Mathis, carrying a small bundle of kindling, whistling softly to himself, thinking only of surviving another freezing night. He paused near Éloi's door, perhaps thinking to check on his old friend. That's when the change ripped through Élioi's body. Not like the stories told by the fireside, of men growing fur and howling at the moon. No. This was something worse. His bones screamed. His muscles twisted unnaturally. His senses sharpened until he could hear Mathis' heartbeat from yards away. In that moment, Éloi was no longer Éloi. He was a vessel for something older, something ravenous. The door burst open. There was no warning. No cry for help. Only the rush of dark instincts taking over. When the haze lifted, Éloi was kneeling over what was left of Mathis, his hands soaked in blood, his mind struggling to piece together the nightmare he had become part of. He staggered back, horrified at what he had done. But deep inside, another voice purred in satisfaction. One debt paid, but many more to come. The first blood had been drawn. And Éloi's humanity, piece by trembling piece, had begun to rot away. But what he didn't know was that true salvation, or true damnation, would demand even greater sacrifices still. The following days in Dole dragged on like the aftertaste of spoiled wine, bitter, heavy, impossible to forget. Éloi barely left his shack. He couldn't. Every time he caught his reflection in a puddle or a broken piece of glass, he didn't see a man, he saw a monster. His hands trembled with memory. His ears rang with Mathis' final gasps. His heart, once desperate to save, now twisted under the crushing weight of what he had become. The village mourned Mathis as a wolf attack, too common a tragedy to question deeply. Wolves had always been a threat. It was easier to blame the forest than to accept the darkness might walk among them. Lucien visited Éloi more often now, worried about his friend's growing isolation. "You're not alone," Lucien said once, his voice full of naive kindness. If only he knew. But Éloi could barely meet his gaze. Every smile Lucien offered was another dagger twisting deeper into Éloi's gut. Every shared memory was a reminder of what was at stake. Because the benefactor's whispers had not stopped. They grew louder. Hungrier. The hunger was changing too. No longer just physical, it was emotional. It gnawed at his loyalty, his love, his humanity. The book had warned, though he hadn't understood it then, the closer the soul, the sweeter the feast. Éloi realized with bone-deep dread that Mathis' death had not been a mistake. It was the start of a pattern. A sick arithmetic where friendship equaled sacrifice. And if Éloi didn't resist, the next victim wouldn't be a stranger. It would be Lucien. Or Gaston. Or maybe even the sister he had sworn to protect. Because in Dole, every choice Éloi made now echoed louder than the last, and the walls were closing in fast. The walls of Éloi's mind were cracking. Every whispered temptation clawed at his sanity. Every smile from Lucien, every word of trust from Gaston, was another stone tied around his neck, dragging him deeper into a sea of guilt and despair. He knew the benefactor was waiting, patient, amused. The hunger inside him roared louder with each passing day, but Éloi fought it, anchoring himself to fading memories of who he used to be. He refused to let another friend die by his hands. Still, temptation knows how to strike when defenses are weakest. One evening, Gaston invited Éloi to join him on a short walk into the woods to gather firewood, something they had done together countless times as boys. Under the dying light, with the trees stretching like skeletal fingers across the sky, Éloi felt the beast stir inside him. The hunger screamed. The whispers turned into commands. He trusts you, it will be easy, feed us. Éloi clenched his fists until his nails drew blood. Every step was a battle. He could almost taste the violence itching under his skin. But when Gaston stumbled and turned back to Éloi with a crooked smile, just a simple, human smile of friendship, the dam broke. Not the dam of hunger. The dam of Éloi's soul. Sobbing, he collapsed to his knees in the dirt, clutching his head, fighting the transformation with every ounce of strength left in his battered spirit. Gaston rushed to his side, clueless to the monster clawing to get out. And then, in the cold stillness, another choice was made. Éloi understood now, survival wasn't about feeding the hunger. It was about denying it. But denial comes at a cost. The benefactor was not a creature of mercy. That night, Éloi would pay the price for his defiance. Because in Dole, there are debts even the strongest heart cannot outrun, and the final reckoning was already on its way. That night, the sky above Dole cracked with thunder, though no storm had come. Éloi stumbled through the woods, each breath a ragged growl. His body twisted in agony, bones snapping, skin stretching, nails ripping into claws. The final payment of the pact was unfolding. He could feel it. This was no longer the hunger of a broken man. It was the awakening of something ancient and monstrous inside him. His legs bent at unnatural angles. His arms bulged with savage strength. Coarse, dark fur erupted across his back. His jaw contorted, teeth elongating into jagged fangs built for tearing. His scream fractured into a beast's guttural howl that echoed across the black forest. Éloi was no longer Éloi. He was a creature of hunger and rage, a beast born of desperation and dark promises. Through the mist, Lucien appeared, clutching a lantern, searching for his lost friend. His heart must have recognized the monster towering before him, even if his mind refused to believe. "Éloi," Lucien whispered, his voice shivering. The beast hesitated. Some sliver of humanity flickered inside those burning, yellow eyes. For a heartbeat, Éloi fought against the bloodlust clawing at him. But the benefactor's voice slithered through his mind, cruel and coaxing, "One more. Just one. And it will all be yours." The beast lunged. And at that very moment, Gaston burst from the shadows, hurling himself between Lucien and the charging monster. The impact was devastating. Éloi, or what remained of him, crushed Gaston to the ground. Blood splattered the frosted earth. For a second, it seemed nothing could stop the rampage. But as Gaston's broken body lay still, something shifted. A searing pain tore through the creature's chest. The bond that had chained Éloi to the benefactor unraveled violently, snapping with a sound like 1,000 screams swallowed by the night. The beast stumbled backward, writhing in agony. The fur receded. The claws retracted. The monstrous frame shrank into a broken, sobbing man. Éloi cradled Gaston's lifeless body, the howling wind carrying his anguished cries across the barren fields of Dole. And thus, the beast was slain, not by blade or fire, but by loyalty, by sacrifice, and by a love that even curses could not corrupt. When the morning light finally touched the cursed fields of Dole, it found only silence. The villagers discovered Gaston's lifeless body cradled in the arms of a broken man, Éloi, stripped of his monstrous form but forever marked by what he had become. His clothes were torn. His skin bore the scars of unnatural transformation. His eyes were hollow, as if the soul inside had been bled dry. They did not understand what they were seeing. They only knew that something monstrous had passed through their village, and left devastation in its wake. Éloi didn't speak. He didn't resist when they cast him out. Some say he walked into the woods and was never seen again. Others claim he took to wandering, warning other villages of the dangers hidden in desperate prayers. And a few whisper that he still roams the forests, caught between man and beast, cursed to remember every scream, every betrayal, every sacrifice. The old women of Dole, to this day, tell the story to children who stray too far from home. Beware the woods when hunger is thick and hope is thin. For in the mist lurks the Beast of Dole, a creature once human, forever cursed by the price of survival. They say if you listen closely, on the coldest nights, you can still hear it. A mournful howl rising from the forest, not of a wolf, nor of a man, but of something caught in between. Something that reminds us, some bargains cost more than life itself. If this story chilled you to the bone, click on the like button, subscribe for more dark legends, and comment, would you survive the Beast of Dole?